Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today we're having that for Greek yogurt, rose and cherries, almond butter. And guys, please stop giving me suggestions on how I can make this better. I like it how it is. I'm good. Okay, we don't need to add elk to it. We don't need to replace it with skyr or whatever this is. I can't even get this stuff where I live. So we're good, guys. Now, I'm going to discuss an unpopular topic, and it's one that upsets people, but it's funny because every expert agrees. Only people who disagree with this are bros, and ironically, a lot of the bros actually agree with this as well. Okay, squats, and when I say squats, I mean all squats. I mean back squats, front squats, safety bar squats, cambered bar squats. Squatting with a barbell is not the best quad exercise. It's just not. If your goal is to get your quads as big as possible, this is not the best way to do it. You know, you get people who like to use anecdote to disprove this, and they'll say, well, it's kind of like people make the stupid strongman arguments about traps and loaded carries. Well, yeah, Jason, well, Olympic weightlifters have big quads, and they squat. The level of stupidity of that argument. I even use that to say, well, the front squat. Well, yeah, they front squat a lot and they have big quads, so therefore the front squat's the best quad exercise. That's cute, except currently the strongest Olympic lifter in the world doesn't front squat. So there goes that theory. You know who has bigger quads than weightlifters? I hate to say this. Bodybuilders, they got bigger quads than them. A lot of them don't even squat. So if we're going to use anecdote, which is where the bros come in, and be like, I don't know, tons of Mr. Olympias don't even squat. Tons of them do. Some of them have really big squats too. Ronnie Coleman. But that's the anecdote. What's the evidence say? Well, the evidence suggests when they look at muscle activation. Because here's what we have to look at. We got to look at biomechanics, we can look at muscle activation, we can look at hypertrophy studies. All important. Muscle activation. EMG studies have usually pretty consistently found high bar squats, low bar squats, front squats. All three of them have the same quad activation. They actually seem to have the same lower body activation in general. Hips, glutes, quads, all that. There's no statistically significant difference in their muscle activation between any of those three. No difference. So don't try to claim that one of them is better than the other. Well, Jason, if you just did this type of squat. Also comical because people want to talk to me about squats and quads and YouTube fitness, and it's like, okay, I have a pretty respectable squat. You guys have seen me do 600 or more at least 3 times on camera. I'm also known for having monstrously big quads. Okay. So, it's funny when people want to talk to me about quads. And I build those quads purely with back squats. No, I did not. You guys have watched me over the years do a lot of isolateral leg movements. Watch me do belt squats. Now you haven't watched me sled drag, but I drag sleds. As of right now, I would say the sled drags probably contribute to my quads the most out of everything I do. Because I drag a sled 5 or 6 days a week. And I do it for short bursts. I do it with heavy weight. Okay? Great quad exercise. Now, what about muscle growth studies? Only one study's looked at it, and here's what they found. And again, this seems to upset people. The study was done on the full squat. In other words, the Olympic squat. Hypertrophy studies found the muscles that grew the most. Now, granted, this was in novice lifters, but this tells us a lot about muscle growth. We can use novice lifters to figure out which muscles grow from a lift pretty effectively. Right, you put a novice under a bench press and see how much pec versus tricep they build. Not that hard. Of course, there, what do you find? The bench press grows the pecs a little better than it grows your triceps. May not be the best arm exercise in the world. Probably not a surprise to anyone out there. Let's come over to the squat. Adductors grew the most in glutes than quads. Although the adductors and glutes are pretty similar. It's when a full squat is done. Those other muscles grew more than the quads. What would that suggest? They take more of the load. Now, when we say that, people then jump up with stupidity like, so you're saying quads don't matter at all? No, and if you heard me make that statement and explain that study, if you think that I'm saying quads don't matter at all, you're probably stupid. You probably need to step back and say, I'm probably not a very smart person at this point if that's how you interpreted that. Because the quads grew. They grew. Don't matter at all. Because everyone seems to need stuff in black and white. They can't understand nuance. They can't understand spectrums, continuums. Everything is just A or B. A or B. There's no other choices. All right? That's a mark of stupidity. It's not good. So what I'm saying is, if you want big quads, you need to do more than squat. And no, front squats don't cut it, because front squats don't work the quads any more than a low bar squat does. That's what the research says. And even some of the squats that bros feel work the quads the most, like the full squat, grow the quads less than they grow the adductors and the glutes. They just do. When we talk about being glute exercises, squats beat hip thrust in the only hypertrophy study that compared them for the glutes. What I'm suggesting is hip extension matters more on the squat than knee extension for total force. It just does. That being said, to build a big squat, you probably don't need to spend enormous amounts of time specializing in your quads. I'm not saying you shouldn't do any quad work. There's a difference, nuance. I'm saying you don't need to obsess over it. It won't matter as much as you think it does. Things like your adductors, there's where you might want to obsess. How do we build adductors with some of the best stuff? Sumo pulls, wide box squats, Romanian deadlifts. There's other tools you could use. I'd be more obsessed with the adductors. You say what you want, say, well, this world-class squatter has massive quads. Yeah, and you'll find another one who doesn't have his quads as big. Both of them have big adductors. Just putting it out there. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.